Sorry, everybody. I'm new to doing this. So, anyway, he's an EOS implementer and a business coach. EOS is short for Entrepreneurial Operating System. And it was first outlined in the book Traction by Gino Wickman, is it?
Wickman, yep. Mm-hmm.
Something you may not know about Steve is he's a mechanical engineer and a naval architect, and he designed multi-million-dollar racing yachts in his previous life. And if you haven't already, listen to his new podcast with Kurt Bear. If you go to our website under podcast, it's number 49, and I'll throw it in the chat as well. Otherwise, he brings a lot of experience and passion to help smart business owners like you all build strong teams and accountability and fitment, which is, I love that. Get everybody in the right seat. So I'll let Steve take over from here. And if you have questions, go ahead and chat them in.
All right. Well, good morning, everyone. Thank you all for being here. Yes, on 2/22/22, whatever it is. A lot of twos in the date today. So I'm going to talk to you about 6 ways that you can strengthen your business. And just to sort of start off and give you some context, I want to sort of prepare you for like what I'm going to talk about this morning. And it's 3 things that when we're talking about EOS, we call it real, simple, and results. Real means that the tools and techniques I'm going to talk to you about are not theory, they're real world. They've been tried and tested in over 13,000 companies. The approach I'm going to talk to you about is simple. So if you like complicated, well, that's not what you're going to get today. You're getting simple today because business owners are busy, right? Everybody's got stuff going on. And so we use simple to save you time. And the tools that I'm going to talk to you about are
You just muted yourself, Steve, or somehow you got muted.
Thank you. Oh, maybe everybody got muted. All right. So where did you lose me?
Tools.
Talking about results. All right. So be careful what you wish for. If you do exactly what I tell you, I talk to you about today, then you're going to get exactly what you want in the business. So I'm going to change my screen over here. And so we're going to see side by side. And I'm going to give you this introduction to the Entrepreneurial Operating System, EOS. And just to move over to the next screen here. So EOS, where does it come from? EOS has been around for about 15 years. And it was developed by Gino Wickman. You can see his picture on the slide here. And Gino has been an entrepreneur since the age of 21. At 25, he came and joined his father in their family business. And this family business was not doing very well. So he ended up working with his father. He ended up taking over the business. They executed a turnaround on that business, grew it, and ended up selling it. So he got some real world experience out of that. After they sold that business, he became one of the first 10 founding members of the Detroit chapter of the Entrepreneurs Organization. And there, Gino really found that he loved helping his fellow members at EO. And he really had a passion for the art and science of growing an entrepreneurial business. So he spent about 5 years cobbling together a set of tools, trying them, refining them, testing them, and ended up creating EOS. And, and what Gino did, there's this real world practical tools that he pulled together. There's no magic pills, there's no silver bullets. It's just a complete proven system of a simple set of practical tools that have now been used in 104,000 full day sessions across 13,300 companies here in the US and around the world. They've been used by Gino, they've been used by myself, and over 450 other EOS implementers. And you can sort of tell from my accent, I'm not from around these parts. I'm here in the middle of Colorado, but I'm from New Zealand originally, and there are even EOS implementers all the way down in New Zealand. So it's great to go and connect with them. And EOS at its core is a complete proven system that helps you get three things we call vision, traction, and healthy. So vision from the standpoint of really helping you and your leadership team figure out like what the vision for your business is, like where you're going and how you're going to get there. And then traction from the standpoint of becoming much more disciplined and accountable, like bringing that vision to reality, masters of execution. And then healthy from the standpoint of making sure that you're working together as a healthy, functional, cohesive leadership team. Because sometimes, I don't know if you've experienced this, but I have, leaders don't play well in the sandbox together. So we work with the leadership team, and then as goes the leadership team, soon then so will go the rest of the organization. And we get everybody on the same page, seeing the same things, wanting the same things, and everybody having a lot more fun sailing in the same direction. Now, EOS is designed for entrepreneurial businesses. And by that, I mean businesses who want to grow. Typically, the sweet spot is 10 to 250 people, but it's worked in much smaller businesses and much larger businesses as well. The key thing is that you have to want it. And it's a mindset, it's a psychographic. You have to want to be willing to be open and honest and vulnerable with yourselves, with the other people around the table, so that you can work together for the good of the company to be able to grow the company forward. So that's a very basic introduction, to EOS. And now I'm going to share with you, why I'm excited to be doing this and some of my history that Deb was talking about at the beginning there. So I had a really cool and interesting start to my career designing multi-million-dollar racing yachts and building and coaching teams to help our clients win some of the world's most demanding yacht races. I learned a lot in those early years about what it took to be a great leader, about the incredible importance of processes and systems. And I also developed this deep passion and curiosity about what it took to build a really great team. I was on some incredible teams, high-performing teams, working together to go win some of the world's most incredible races. I was also on some teams. Sorry, something's happened here. Sorry. I was also on some teams where we were working together, many years invested, and we wouldn't get there. And I was kind of like puzzled by that. I didn't really have the tools at the time to be able to figure that out. And then I also spent 16 years building my entrepreneurial mindset and rising to become a leader at the top yacht design company in the world. We grew that business from 10 to 22 staff. But then I found myself at the top and kind of no way to learn more within that area. So I made the very difficult decision, leave that business. I went into government contracting in Washington, DC, became a certified PMP project manager, learned how to manage much larger multi-million-dollar budgets, much larger groups of people, helping the US Navy launch ships into the fleet. And then 7 years ago, I decided it was time to get back to my entrepreneurial roots. So I started my own business, really around this mission and passion to help people, teams, and businesses get unstuck, sail forward, and build more fun and profitable place to work with their crew. Along the way, I was introduced to Traction and to EOS, and I immediately fell in love because here, finally, I'd sort of found the tools that I wished I'd had back when I was faced with obstacles trying to grow the yacht design business. So as Deb said, today I'm a professional EOS implementer, and I just love helping business owners get unstuck, get their crews aligned, get everybody heading in the same direction, build that business and move forward. So that gives you an introduction and a foundation on EOS and on me. And now I'm going to really dive in, and I'm going to start telling you about the tools that you can use to strengthen your business execution. Now I'm going to do this with a model. And so when we introduce EOS, we always sort of start at the beginning and like, where did this come from? And start off, illustrate EOS with a model. And that model has your business at the center of it. I'm just going to write here. your business. Oh my gosh, why is this moving? Okay, and this model is based around a discovery that as business owners and leadership teams, we've all got 136 issues coming at us all at once every single day. And that discovery is to the extent that we can strengthen 6 key components in the business, then those 136 issues just tend to fall in place because they're symptoms. They're symptoms of root causes. And what we end up working on when I'm working with the leadership team is to work on root causes to strengthen that. And that's the journey that we're going on, to strengthen these 6 key components, root causes. So obviously feel free to take notes. I'll ask you, or if you have questions, chime in. We'll get to the end and I'll ask you, what resonated. So I'm going to share these 6 key components with you. I'm going to do it in 2 passes. The first pass, I'm going to do it at a very high level so that you can kind of get a full picture of the model. And then I'm going to dive in more detail on the second pass around. So the first key component we talk about is the vision component. And as I mentioned before, vision is really about figuring out what the vision for your business is, and to really be able to then get everybody on the same page with that vision. And it's so important to have everybody on that same page, aligned in the same direction. There's a couple of tools and disciplines that I'm going to talk about there. And then the second component is the people component, right? Because you can't bring that great vision to reality without having great people in your organization. The thing is that every organization defines great people differently. They're unique to you. And what we work on in EOS is really bringing that out and defining what makes great people for your organization. And then the third key component is the data component. And this is about running your business on facts and figures and objective information, and really getting away from all those sort of feelings and egos and all of the subjective stuff that kind of gets in the way of running an entrepreneurial business. And I'm going to talk about a couple of tools and disciplines there. And the thing is that when you strengthen vision and people and data, you now start getting transparency into your organization. You start seeing the obstacles, the impediments, the things that are getting in your way of being able to take your business to where you really want to take it. And that's actually a good thing. We want to see these things. And then that brings us to the fourth key component, which is the issues component. And this is about really being able to identify what are those impediments, what are the issues, and then be able to work together as a leadership team to be able to solve them, to be able to set those issues up, to be able to solve them, knock them down, and get rid of them for the long-term health of the organization, working on the issues component. And then the fifth key component is the process component. All right, and this is about getting the important stuff done in your organization the right way and the best way, the same way, every single time. And when you create that consistency in the organization, then you get scalability. And magically, the business becomes easier to manage and more fun because people are doing things the right way all the time. And it really helps managing the business when you know that things are being done that way and it's not all on your shoulders to be pushing it forward. And then finally, the sixth component is the traction component. And this is about bringing your vision down to the ground and really executing with discipline and accountability day in and day out in the business. As we say in EOS, vision without traction is hallucination, right? We really concentrate on getting that traction in the business. So those are the 6 components, and it's all about harmonizing and orchestrating all of the human energy in your business. I believe that when you run a better business, then you can have a better life. Better businesses create better communities, they create jobs, jobs create economic wealth, better education for our kids, right? So all of these things come together to create a better life for us all, and who doesn't want that, right? So now I'm going to go into a second pass around this model, and I'm going to give you some more detail about what I'm talking about here. So when I'm talking about strengthening the vision component, as I've said, it's about really getting everybody on the same page in your organization about where the business is actually going. And I've experienced, in my past, in good ways and bad ways, things in my career, but sort of really seeing, one of the biggest challenges I faced in that yacht design business was ultimately figuring out that we weren't all on the same page with the company and where it was going to be going. So one of the tools that we use to help you get your vision together is I start off working with you and I ask you 8 questions. And we keep these on this, what we call this vision traction organizer. Those 8 questions are, what are your core values? What's your core focus? What's your 10-year target? What's your marketing strategy? What's your 3-year picture? What's your 1-year plan? What are your rocks and what are your issues? So putting all of that together sort of creates this simplified strategic plan for your organization. Now, I'm not going to go into all of those in detail this morning because we don't have time, but I want to talk about one of these, which is the core values, right? The core values really define who you are as an organization. They define your culture. And they're not just things like when we work together, they're not just things that, are on the door or on the wall or something like that. I work with you to make sure that they're lived in your organization daily, using your core values to hire, to fire, to reward, to recognize your people. So how do we do that? Well, to give you an example of some clients I was working with recently, we work through, I take you through some exercises to really define what your core values are. But then the next step is to really come up with some stories, some examples that illustrate how those core values are being used and lived in your organization. So these clients, they were a construction company, and the CEO was telling me the story. So their core value was going above and beyond. Got it. Going above and beyond. But what does that look like in their organization? The CEO told me this story of one day it's pouring down rain. Nobody's in the office except the sales manager and a young lady on the admin desk. And so this pouring down rain, this delivery truck pulls up with all this construction stuff in it. Truck driver comes in and says, I need some help to unload the truck. Sales manager says, not my job. I'm not going to do it. So the lady on admin, she puts on her raincoat, she goes out into the rain, she helps this truck driver unload the truck in the rain and take care of all of that. When the CEO came back at the end of the day and found out what had happened, he fired that sales manager right then and there on the spot for not helping out unloading that truck, and recognized the young lady on the admin desk for going above and beyond in their organization. And the point of all that is too, this now becomes a story, right? And this illustrates for everybody in the organization, when the CEO says going above and beyond, this is what we mean in this organization. We put our raincoats on, we go out in the rain, we unload trucks, even if it's not our job. And we go through that with all of the core values. And the important thing is then to take all of those, put them into stories, and then we get it shared by all in the organization. And this is something I think that is very critical, because often business owners, they've got it all in their head, right? I know what my core values are. I know what we're supposed to be doing around here. We need to get it shared by everybody in the organization, so everybody's on that same page and seeing that same thing. So we work through all of this in the Vision Traction Organizer, and like I say, get everybody aligned in the business moving forward. So that's what it looks like when we work on strengthening the vision component in the organization. So now I'm going to talk about what it's like when we strengthen the people component in the organization. And as I said before, you sort of can't achieve a great vision without having great people in the organization. But each organization defines what a great person is very uniquely. And so we work together to be able to figure out what that is. And we use those core values to be able to really determine that. And so what we talk about when we're strengthening the people component is what I call right people, right seats. Right people, right seats. So this is a term from Jim Collins, from Good to Great. And in EOS, what we've done is we've put a system around how you actually make that tangible in your organization. So what are right people? Right people are people who share your organization's core values, right? And this is really about making sure that as you're building this team, that the people coming onto the team are with you, because I'm sure a lot of you have probably worked in a place where it's maybe something's just a little bit off, and there's kind of like sometimes there's that person, right? And you're not really sure, like, why does that person not kind of fit with the team? And it's usually around this issue of core values. And one of the greatest teams I ever worked with, they were so intentional, person by person by person, as they brought new people onto the team, they really made sure that there was a good core values fit as these people were joining the team. And really making that team, once they got that team together and everybody was aligned that way, it was incredible what they were able to do. And we have a tool, it's called the People Analyzer, and we use this to be able to really objectively figure out and help you get on the same page with people in your organization, who's exhibiting the core values, and where there's room for improvement. It's a great way of being able to have conversations with your employees about where they're succeeding and where they can work some more. And then right seats. So right seats are people who have the innate talent, they've got the skills, they've got the desire to be really great at their jobs, right? And so the process that we use here to figure that out is something we call GWC. And GWC stands for gets it, wants it, and has the capacity to do it, right? So gets it, people who understand the job innately, like they inside, they really get like what the job needs and entails. Wants it means they're rolling out of bed in the morning, wanting to come to work, wanting to come to do the job that you are asking them to do in the organization. And then capacity to do it means, they've got the skills, they've got the training, they've got the experience, and they've got the time to be really great at their job. And the thing is that the gets it and the wants it, you can't pay people to get it and to want it, all right? It has to come from the inside. And so you're really looking for and, trying to find those people who get the job, who want the job. And then the capacity thing, well, we can train people, we can work with people to get that experience moving forward. And, I'm passionate about this because I've had, a very sort of formative experience, I think, in my very first job. I was working on this professional sailing team, and I got to experience this because the number 2 guy on the sailing team was an incredibly talented sailor, right? Very, very skilled, a lot of experience, incredible physical strength. He was an incredible person to have on the crew. He was great at his job, except for one thing. He didn't have a fuse. Now, his nickname was Bam Bam, and it's not just because of his resemblance to the Flintstones character. And maybe you might sometimes see this in your business too. You have an extremely talented team member, but they just don't quite fit the culture of your organization. And in our case with Bam Bam, his temper just started causing other talented team members of our, on our team to leave, and then his relationship with the skipper deteriorated. And we just got to the point where, that very difficult decision had to be made, and a change had to be made for the long-term health of the team, and Bam Bam had to go. So I lived through this, that very distinct lesson, like you need to really have people who, fit your culture and are in the right seats of the organization. And we go through and help you be able to get that with the tools that we're using in the organization. All right, so the third component, data component. As I said before, this is about running your business on facts and figures and objective information, getting away from all of those feelings, egos, all of the other stuff that gets in the way. Data is such an incredibly important thing to be looking at in the business, so you can figure out like where you're supposed to be going. Are you on track for that? And not to run into some obstacles. And, the great story I love telling about data is, I was on this racing team. We're out in the middle of the Bay in Maryland, and we're winning this race. Everybody's concentrating. Everybody's doing really great. There was a sort of this thing about this weather forecast that was out there, but nobody had really paid too much attention to that. And nobody paid too much attention to the fact that when the temperature started dropping a little bit and they were starting to get that electric feeling in the air, and then all of a sudden these clouds came racing down the bay, and blam, and we were hit with this major squall. The boat was like laid over, it's on its side, sails are flapping, the lee side of the boat's underwater, the hatches are open, water's pouring into the boat. I mean, we were going to sink. It was just crazy. So we had to get up on deck. We had to try to get the sails down, get the boat back upright and recover this thing. And my point about all of this is like data, like we should have been monitoring like what's happening, like what's coming, like keeping an eye on all of that stuff, so that we don't get into trouble. And the way that we do that in EOS is with a scorecard. And we come up with, I work with you to come up with 5 to 15 measurables, right, that really sort of help you keep a track of what's going on in the organization. And these are weekly activity-based numbers. So this is not looking at the past. This is like trying to get as close to the leading edge as you can about where your organization's going. And then we also define who's accountable for all of those measurables. And we set a weekly goal. And then we track 13 weeks of data so you can see if your organization's on track or off track and what needs to be done in the organization. So that's what it looks like when we strengthen the data component using a scorecard and having these measurables that we're keeping a track of in the organization. All right, so now I'm going to talk about strengthening the issues component in the organization, right? Getting really great at solving issues together, like identifying problems and being able to work together as a leadership team to be able to to set them up, knock them down, and have them go away. So often in businesses, we have these same issues that kind of fester and they stay there, and we're not taking care of them, not getting those impediments out of the way. And this picture I have here is the America's Cup was down in Auckland, New Zealand at the beginning of 2020. And one of the American team from the New York Yacht Club, in one of the races, they were going around one of the top marks. They went into a jibe, something got stuck. They got hit by a gust at the same time. And next thing, blam, they're on their side with the boat starting to sink. And they actually ended up with a hole there. The thing about why this, obviously this was a major issue, right? They came together as a team, figuring out how they were going to save the boat, really identifying the things that they needed to do. Other challenges and the other competitors came to work with them as well. So it was this incredible thing where everybody was coming together, figuring out how we're going to solve this problem, how are we going to stop this boat sinking, how are we going to retrieve it? And they did. They recovered it, took it back on land, spent a little while repairing it with the whole team working on that so they could get back out sailing. And the two tools that we use in EOS, which is similar to what they were using in this particular situation here, is the first thing is having what we call a list, just an issues list. But it's about really making sure that you create a culture and an environment in your organization where everybody feels safe to be able to put up their hand and say, hey, here's an issue. Here's something, I want to call it out. Like, we need to do something about it. Let's get it on the list. So that's about creating an environment for that. And then once we've done that, then we have to prioritize what's on that list and solve those issues. And we use something we call IDS, which stands for identify, discuss, and solve. So I teach you how to identify and prioritize what's on your issues list. I pick the top priority issue. We identify like what's the root cause of the issue, because oftentimes what people have written is not the root cause, it's a symptom. So you're going to need to dig down, get to the root cause. You need to have a discussion with the whole team, so everybody gives input. And then once that discussion has been had, then we need to work together intentionally as a team to solve that issue and have it go away for the long-term health of the organization. So that's what it looks like when we strengthen that issues component, having a list and then being able to work together to solve problems. All right, almost there. So when we talk about strengthening the process component, right, we're really talking about a number. Each business has a set of core processes that really define like how you go about doing business. And I certainly experienced this in the yacht design business. Like we had people like the yacht in this picture here racing around the world. They were thousands of miles away from land, going around Antarctica at some stages. So if something went wrong on that boat, like no one was coming to help them, right? So we had to make sure that that boat was designed and built as best as it could be. And we had to make sure we were using our core processes to be able to design that boat to not miss something, to make sure everything was, in compliance with all of the rules and regulations and other things that needed to go into that design. So I already found, that was ended up being one of our competitive advantages because we documented our core processes, and then we were able to come up with new designs and things much more quickly than our competition. And when you get that important stuff in your organization defined, then you're really able to, to be able to get the consistency in the organization. People know what they're doing, people are more relaxed, and then you as a manager and as a leader, well, people are doing things the right way. So now you can start growing the business and actually managing the business and having more fun with it. There's two techniques that we use when we're talking about strengthening the process component. I'll just write these here quickly. So we take what we call a 20-80 approach to documenting your core processes. That means we identify the 20% of the major steps that get you 80% of that process described, right? You're all busy. You don't have time to be sitting around documenting all of the nitnoy detail, 100% of the steps and all of your processes. I mean, even if you did, you'd end up with a 700-page standard operating procedure manual, which, guess what, would go and sit on a shelf somewhere. No one would ever read it. So we keep it simple, simplify them. 20% of the major steps that get you 80% of that process described. And then once you've done that, very importantly, we need to get them followed by all, FBA. And that means that everybody who touches your core processes has been properly trained, knows the right way of doing things, and has been measured and managed to do it the best way and the right way every single time. After that, you scale a business and you have more fun as you're doing it. Okay, and so finally, when we talk about strengthening the traction component, this is all about getting that discipline, getting the accountability in the business. So often when I'm talking with business owners and I'm asking them, like, what's your major issue in the business? Like, what's holding you back? This word accountability comes up so often. And usually, people are sort of looking at accountability as somebody else's problem, but it's about really putting the processes in place, having the discipline in the business, and then the accountability will follow from that. And a little physics lesson for the morning, just to further my sailing analogies that I've been talking about. So I design sailboats, right? Sailboats are pushed forward. They can reach incredible speeds, but they're just operating off of the force of the wind, right? Harnessing the wind, which is like the market environment out there, right? So we've got that environment out there. We want to harness it so that we can move our business forward. And the boat's sails produce a lift force, right? And just like revenue in our business. And then, from those sales, well, we've got things like costs of goods sold, expenses, and other things like that. But, after that, we end up with some gross profit, right? This is like driving the business forward. It's a good thing. But other things get in the way. There's this thing called drag, right? And this like slows the boat down. What are the things that are dragging on your business? Is it staff turnover? Is it the wrong people in the wrong seats? Are you looking at the wrong data, or maybe not looking at data at all? Are your meetings inefficient, not deciding stuff, with problems staying around and not getting resolved? Is there too much rework, too many do-overs, unhappy clients. Like, what are all those things that drag on the business and slow it down? And what would it be like if we could get rid of some of those things, free the business up and get it going? And these America's Cup boats are amazing because they get the boats sailing up on hydrofoils, and which reduces the drag. And the boats that I used to design used to do about 10 knots, which is nowhere. It's like watching the grass grow, watching boats sailing on TV. Now they're doing 50 knots because they've got the whole boat up out of the water. They've reduced the drag and they're going 5 times faster. That is some amazing viewing when you see these boats racing. So my point is there, get the traction in your business. We have processes for the discipline, for the accountability, reduce the drag, and off you go. So that's the EOS model. I've done 2 passes, gone into some deep dive details there. And the thing is that, when you've strengthened these 6 key components in your business, you're running a better business and you're living this better life. And we have a name for that too. It's called the EOS life. And the EOS life has 5 components to it. It's doing what you love, with people that you love, making a huge difference, right? Making a dent in the universe, being compensated appropriately. We are here in business, to do all of these things, and it's not a bad thing to be compensated appropriately. And then the 5th thing, the important thing, well, they're all important, but the important thing to me is with time for other passions. So often, you're trying to get this business going, you're trying to get off the ground, you're working 7 days a week, 12 hours a day. This beautiful Colorado here, don't get to go out hiking anymore and things like that. So strengthening your business with the EOS operating system gets you to this EOS life and to be able to really enjoy all of these 5 things here. And, to the extent that you can look at this and you can go down and you can rate yourself. You can say, well, on a scale of 1 to 10, how am I doing with doing what I love? Scale 1 to 10, am I doing it with people that I love? How am I doing with making a huge difference? How am I doing with, my compensation? How am I doing with getting time for other passions? So, I am passionate about EOS. I'm passionate about helping business owners live the EOS life. If some of these topics have resonated with you today, you're curious, you'd like to know more, I'm here and always willing to talk and happy to talk. So my email address is there, steve.morris@eosworldwide.com. The QR code there, you can catch that, gets you to my Calendly link. So you can set a time and we can have another chat. So with that, that's my show. Any questions? What resonated? What do you guys like?
Go ahead and unmute yourselves if you have a question. I am curious, Steve, a little bit more about what are the components of the traction side of it? Like what can any of these business owners do now to help identify what the drag is?
Sure, that's a good question, Deb. So one of the things that so there's 2 components to traction, 2 major components. The first is what we call rocks. So this is about really having, so rocks are 90-day business priorities, right? And so this is really about having some defined priorities. What should I be working on over the next 90 days? And I think that this is, I've run into this, to sit down at the beginning of the year and do our strategic planning and, put together our annual plan for the year. And then we get to the end of the year and it's like, well, what happened? Didn't get there. So what we do is to get that discipline, get the accountability, we create 90-day worlds for the organization to really be able to see, like, what should we be focusing on? And then the second component of strengthening the traction component is what we call a level 10 meeting. And so that is, there's a defined meeting agenda that I teach you to be able to get your leadership team together to make sure you're focusing on and prioritizing the right things in the organization on a weekly basis. So often when I talk with potential clients and say, how's your leadership team meeting going? And people say, well, we don't really meet that often, or, it's pretty irregular. We don't have a regular meeting cadence. So that's where the discipline, the accountability comes in. Weekly meetings, defined agenda, start on time, finish on time, and move forward from there.
What was number 3, if you don't mind? Didn't you say there were 5?
No, I don't think so.
Oh, okay. Sorry.
I got 5 components of the EOS life,
Oh,
6
got it.
components of the model.
Steve, how often do you find?
Oh, Mike, you just muted yourself again.
Sorry about that. How often do you find the clients know and understand how to go through figuring out that vision? Where do they want to go? I mean, do they typically have a robust strategic planning process in place, or is that something that you have to go in and teach them how to do?
Yeah, it varies, right? Some clients have done a strategic planning process, maybe with another coach or a consultant, so they've got sort of some ideas about that. But we go through those 8 questions on the Vision Traction Organizer, and we can pull in some of those components. But what it ends up doing is creating this more tangible picture, I think. So, I talked about those 8 questions, and one of them is, what's your 10-year target? And so this is what Jim Collins called the BHAG, the Big Hairy Audacious Goal. And it really is like setting something out there that is like a North Star for the business. Not everybody thinks that far out, like, well, where are we heading with this business 10 years from now? And then we go and we put in a 3-year picture. So we bring that 10-year vision closer to us and say, what does your organization need to look like 3 short years from now? And we create a picture around that. So 5 to 15 bullet points that paint a picture. And that the lovely thing about pictures and visual images is when people can see that picture, it's much more likely, to be able to be realized. And then we go from the 3-year picture to the 1-year plan. Okay, like if you want to be on track for that 3-year picture to the 10-year target, what are the priorities that we need to get done this year, right? And then we take that 1-year plan and we bring it down to 90 days to really help focus people. What do I need to get done this quarter so I can be on track for the 1-year plan to get to the 3-year picture to the 10-year target? So we pull all that thread together, and what it does is it pulls that vision down to, like oftentimes people are like, well, okay, I can see some vision, but what am I supposed to be doing this week? And we put a structure in place that really informs that, and that's where the traction comes.
So do you have an example of a client that, because you've been doing this, I think you'd said, Steve, right? Or you've been doing this for several years now with EOS. Have you got a client that's actually passed through that 3-year gate, right, in the process, just as sort of a success story around that?
Still going, like, so just sort of every client sort of moves at a different rate in terms of how they sort of bring these things on. But one of my clients, they've been able to take all of this work that we've been doing, and they're rolling it into like an incentive plan, because before they sort of had this idea of, well, we need to have something to incentivize people in the business, but they didn't know kind of how to structure that and how to tie that together. And so they've used all of this work that we've done in EOS to be able to tie that together so that people are being incentivized to, follow the core values, to work on the, within the core focus of the business, to be, to being those right people in the right seats in the organization. And so they've really, being able to leverage a lot of what we've done to make sure that system has been working for them. So that those are sort of like some of the highlights I see coming out of it. And then other, people I'm working with, so a lot of visionaries are very creative. They like creating lots of businesses. And what I see often is A business owner's created a business, they've kind of got it running, and then we put EOS in the business as an operating system and a strong integrator running the business. And then they know that that business is just ticking away, right? And having that discipline and accountability. And now they're free to go, I've got clients that they go start another business because that's what they love doing. So they're like creating, more, more wealth in the universe, I think, just, creating more businesses. But that's what EOS has allowed them to do, is sort of like, this business is going great. Now I'm going to do something else. I love seeing that.
So if you had just a couple of things then that your clients say after they've been engaged in this process for, let's just say 12 to 24 months, what would they say are the biggest impacts that they've seen to their business? If they had to pick one key that's made all the difference, what do they typically say?
Well, it's getting to that EOS life. It's
Okay.
having time. That's the biggest thing, right? Having time. So the business isn't all consuming. They're running the business, not the business running them. I mean, but there's a whole lot of other, wonderful emotions that come out of this. People feel excited again to be running their business. They're not dreading it. And also it's not just the business owner too, it's the whole leadership team. Everybody's like, oh my gosh, I know what I'm supposed to be doing. I'm so excited. We have a plan at long last. Instead of going here and going there and up here and around there, we have a plan. We know what we're supposed to be doing when we come to work on Monday.
Yeah.
And it's great to sort of see that. And then to be able to see, the progress of that too, right? To be able to look back and, because we're using data, right? Because we're doing these plans, right? And then we can pull out an old plan and we can see, this is where we started from at the beginning. Here's where we are now. And, just to sort of tie it all the way back to the beginning, what I talked about, vision, traction, and healthy, I've been talking mostly about sort of vision and traction, but the healthy thing is so important. And we have a lot of structure and exercises and things that we go through about getting that leadership team to just work together in a more healthy, functional, cohesive way. And sometimes in this process, people find that they are not on the right bus. And they need to go find a different bus to be on, which is great, right? I mean, this is part of this whole process, is you should be doing things that you love with people that you love, everybody. Right. So there's a place for everybody. It just might not be on your bus.
You talked a little bit earlier about just sort of the types of businesses, size of business, those kind of things. At what point, as a business is getting started, right, should they consider engaging you and implementing EOS as part of their business? What's sort of the triggers that would say it's time to call Steve and bring him in?
Thanks, Mike. That's a great question. So I think the first thing, so it's about execution, right? EOS is about execution. So if you have product market fit, you know what you're doing, you've got your business model sorted out, and you know where you're heading with that. And then all you need from there is you're like, okay, how do we scale this up? How do we get more impact with the business? Then that's the time when we can start. EOS, I don't think works particularly well prior to that, because we're all about execution. We're all about getting rid of that drag and having you go faster. So you better be going, you want to go faster in the right direction.
Right.
And then from there, well, so this is where we start at the beginning. We talk about this concept of hitting the ceiling, right? And so the original business founder, and I think, Heather, if I can, call out that what you were saying, right? You've got yourself and your husband, and now you're about to replicate yourself, right? You're about to bring another person into your business, right? And that's an important thing. Like, okay, now, we're doing everything we can. We need to clone ourselves. We need more people. We have to be able to delegate the work that we're doing to other people so that they can be doing things and move the business forward. And I think, once you sort of get to that stage, that's when we can really have a great conversation, because in my view, the earlier you put these systems and processes in place, the better off you're going to be scaling the business forward. I mean, if you've got a business with 150 people in it already, obviously it's going to take some time to change that culture, to change the environment, to put the processes in place. And we have a process for doing that. But if you've got 6 people sitting around the table, then we can look at everybody eyeball to eyeball, and we can get this stuff figured out a lot more quickly, and then get everybody into living that EOS life. So I don't, once this product market fit, I don't feel like it's too soon at all. And, there's a lot of tools out there, right? So get Traction. If somebody would like a copy of Traction, you've got my email address there. Reach out to me. I'll be happy to have a chat to you about it and get you a book. There's a lot of tools on the EOS Worldwide website that you can download. So you can read Traction. You can talk to me. One of our core values is help first. I'm always willing to talk and help. So even if you don't think the full-blown EOS implementation is right for you just yet, hey, have a cup of coffee. I can point, tell me what you need. I'll point you in the right direction, get you going.
Awesome.
One more question, or maybe it's not one more question. Anyway, a question for me. What is the process for figuring out the really it's what those right seats are? I think as our company has changed, even in the last 2 years, I've noticed, there's a little bit of siloing going on, and I know we have the right people. I just don't know what those seats really look like, and how, just the complexities between like inventory and operations and different things, and not knowing really how much time a position would take if we reformulated some things. What does that process look like to identify what those seats can look like, and vision that out before you put people in those positions, or change people's positions to a degree?
Yeah, that's a great question, Jennifer. So on our very first day of working together, we work on a tool called the accountability chart. And this is what we're doing here. And we take a structure first, people second approach to getting the right structure for your organization. It's a difficult thing to do because I'm working with a leadership team around the table, and everybody's got titles. Like I'm the director of marketing and things like that. But I work with the team to become directors for the day, looking down on the organization and saying, what's the right structure for this business? And we have a model that we start with, and there's an assumption that every business has like at a minimum 3 major functions, right? You've got marketing and sales, you've got operations, and you've got finance, right? Every business needs those at its core. And then on top of that, we have a position called an integrator, which is like a chief operating officer, but an integrator is like the person that beats the drum for the organization. They keep the coordination across the leadership team, keep the trains running on time. And then we have a discussion about whether or not there's a visionary in the organization as well. But the important thing is that we go about working together to customize that structure and make sure it's right for you. So we take that 30,000 foot level, like what does this organization really need to look like? And especially 6 months or 12 months from now, get that sorted out. Yeah. And do we need, inside of, we have business operations, or we have inventory, like each, what is it? What do we actually need to have as a function there? And then, sort of creating that leadership team from there, getting that structure right. And then once we've got the structure correct, then we go about defining the roles within each one of those functions that we've defined, making sure that everybody's straight with that. And then that's when we go about putting, matching up people's skills, the GWC part of it. Do they get it? Do they want it? Do they have the capacity for it? Matching that up with what we've defined as the role for each one of those functions. So structure first, people second, and it's a work in progress too. We go through, we work on it the first day we're together, we come back a month later. Is this the right structure for the organization? Is the first question I ask. And people have had time to sleep on it and look at it and things like that. And we work forward like that. So structure first, people second. All right, how are we doing with time, Deb? Are we 5 minutes? 5-minute warning. Anything else that resonated? Any other questions? Yes, there's, did Deb put this in chat? Let me just see.
Oh,
yes.
So Steve recently did a podcast with Kurt in the LoCo Experience Podcast. It's wonderful. It's great listening. So I just wanted to give you the link to that. And then we have another event. We have a social at the Sweetheart Winery. She's a brand new member of LoCo Think Tank. And so she's hosting a social tomorrow from 4 to 6. And we'd love to have you all. Just come rub elbows and talk Kurt into buying you a drink.
Yeah, I'm going to be there.
Yay.
Yay.
So any other questions?
Yeah, like I say, I'm here to help. So please reach out. I'm always happy to have a conversation. If you see me at the social tomorrow night, I can give you my card. We can come figure out a time to have some coffee, and I'm here to help. I love, as I've been saying throughout this, I love seeing better businesses. It creates better lives. Everybody should be living a better life, making impact, being compensated appropriately, and having time to get outside and enjoy the great outdoors here in lovely Colorado.
Thank you, Steve. We really appreciate you. So thank you so much for giving us your time.
All right. Well, thank you all for everybody for coming today. Really
All
appreciate
right.
it.
Bye-bye, everyone.
All right. See you all.
Thank you, Steve.
Bye.
Thank you.